Hi everyone, my name is Zainab Namani and I'm part of Group 1 with Brian Kendrick. Welcome to our presentation for this week on critical infrastructure.
As presented in the last slide, there are 16 critical infrastructure sectors. Each sector has a dependency on each other sector. They are kind of pedestals that hold up the civilization, and they are all interdependent. And most critical infrastructures are related to sectors in energy, communication, information technology, transportation, government facilities, industry, national defense, and the interrelation of these is quite interwoven and interdependent. As you begin your research in critical infrastructure, you'll find out this very quickly, and that the sections of critical infrastructure will have impacts on each other. As one is attacked, others will either absorb that or will fail due to that, right? And without predictive modeling tools that we find in AI and machine learning and some of these other tools that were discussed previously in this term, it's very hard, if not potentially impossible, to predict impacts of disruption or failure to these infrastructure elements. At least it's not able to be done quickly enough to be effective in mitigating some of these issues, right? So a good instance of this is the disruption of a sector having secondary impacts on another is the COVID-19 pandemic and the supply chain disruptions. Right now, everything is having problems getting supplies in or out of the country, or even producing supplies inside of the country, and that's having a secondary impact on the public health sector. So in this slide, we're going to talk a little bit about current developments, as alluded to in the previous slides. Each sector has its own vertical, its own silo of research. However, they are interconnected and interdependent. There was some research done earlier in the century, the 21st century, that looked at the interdependencies of critical infrastructure and proposed the dimensions of the frames for the main aspects of those interdependencies and how those interdependencies kind of correlated between those and how we could split those out into cleaner silos for research. One area of research that's currently ongoing is the development of an ICERI framework to define and isolate issues with transportation systems. There are several different articles from several different publishers about these frameworks and how they work in defining traffic patterns, defining how transmission rates occur inside of these transportation systems and how to better isolate and coordinate transportation for large infrastructures and cities. Research initiatives are also happening in viewing critical security in infrastructure in the IT sectors, seeing how the innovations of cybersecurity and quantum computing can help predictively analyze the data sets that are being accrued through these systems. Research on initiatives for reliability for low demand and high efficiency electrical grids and intelligence grids and systems are currently being investigated as well, especially with the solar initiatives that are going on inside of the US. There are also summaries that are happening for risk assessments on smart grids. Kind of alluded to this just a few minutes ago about the cybersecurity risk to smart grids and the data that is collected in those smart grids and being able to influence and impact critical infrastructure such as transportation systems or nuclear power plants or even coal power plants, healthcare systems, all of these things that kind of exist in the smart grid of new smart cities. So some pros and cons of critical infrastructure. As in its name, it states that it is critical. So it's nothing that we can work without, but some of the pros of critical infrastructure include the backbone to the health system for the U.S. economy. The stock market relies on critical infrastructure. The press relies on critical infrastructure. The transportation systems rely on critical infrastructure. The shipping industry relies on critical infrastructure. Data aggregation from smart cities can help us forecast needs and critical events. So the more data that we acquire through these critical infrastructures and smart cities give us a better picture of things that are happening inside of the country and how we can apply better training or safety protocols or better routes or even predict where new infrastructure is going to be needed. Safety obviously can be improved with the use of critical infrastructure and reviewing that infrastructure and its advancements. As technology advances, the critical infrastructure it tends to try to keep pace. Doesn't always, but it does try to keep pace. Some cons for critical infrastructure include the rate in which the development has not always been able to keep pace with critical infrastructure. So again, this kind of goes to we are growing faster than we can produce our critical infrastructure. If you take a drive down the road, you'll see that today. The potholes on the road, all the critical infrastructure work that's happening on water and power lines right now are just some examples of that, where we're having to come back to these things as our growth happens. It poses a significant attack vector and an attack surface for cybersecurity, especially as the more technology is impacted and integrated into these systems. It is in need of constant repair and uninterrupted service. So with critical infrastructure, just like a critical system, the finding time to do repairs, updates, outages is difficult at best. It's vulnerable to attack, not just cyber attack, but terroristic attack as well. And the IoT risk that is inherent with these larger, smarter cities, again, increases that data collection point, but also increases the attack vector and the surface for cybersecurities and even for things as mundane as squirrels chewing on the electrical lines or the data lines.
So, in regards to future research, the President's Commission on Critical Infrastructure Protection, established in July 1996 by Executive Order 13010, was asked to review the vulnerability and threats to the U.S. critical infrastructure and to develop a comprehensive national strategy for protecting the infrastructures. This commission identifies 6 areas of research and development that they will be focusing on in the next 5 years. The first one is information assurance, which deals with protecting information created, stored, processed, and transmitted on increasingly interconnected and complex communications infrastructures. New affordable means of protection are needed because of the increasing rate of incidents, new vulnerabilities, and the inadequacy of current solutions. The other area of research is monitoring and threat detection. This is very important because it will provide timely and effective information collection and analysis, as well as reliable automated monitoring and detecting systems. Technologies such as these are needed to identify and characterize attacks against systems. The other research area is providing advanced methods and tools to advance physical and cyber security in a unified way. It is important to identify infrastructure nodes, to analyze infrastructure dependencies, and to understand how complex systems work. Experiments that cannot be performed on operational systems may require simulation and modeling tools. Uh, the other research area is risk management and decision support, which will assist governments and the private sector in prioritizing the use of resources in order to reduce risk. As a result of increasing interdependence and increased reliance on cyber systems, risk management methodologies and tools are needed to address both familiar threats, including natural disasters and physical attacks, as well as emerging and future threats. The final research area is protection and mitigation technologies for real-time monitoring and control of infrastructure systems, infrastructure hardening, containment methods, and isolation techniques for the protection of infrastructure systems from a wide range of threats and vulnerabilities. It is imperative to implement advanced measures to enhance survivability, reliability, and assurance. Technology and tools for incident response and recovery with the ability to plan for, respond to, and recover following incidents such as natural disasters, cyber and physical attacks that compromise local and national infrastructures. There's a lot of research